All right, we should be good to go now. All right, the time is now 7:04 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here?
Pro Tem Knott,
Here.
Trustee Britnall, Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Flores, Trustee Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Seaver.
All right,
Is Kyle online?
Kyle's online. Yep.
Okay.
Kyle is remote, yeah.
Sorry guys, I had to be remote tonight. Not feeling too well, so.
All right, may we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did we have any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody here for non-agenda items in the chambers with us for public comment?
My emoji isn't working.
Okay.
Just kidding.
All right. Okay. All right.
Bring a little humor in here.
All right, okay, the next item then on the agenda is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the September 26th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. Is there anything any board member would like to discuss or make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda containing the minutes of the September 26, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by trustee Clausen to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by trustee Hanrahan. All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And just to confirm, that was an aye, Mayor Pro Tem, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
No, sir.
None here.
Not here.
And I've got none either. Do we have any agenda changes tonight by staff or by the board?
None here.
None here.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we had a miscommunication with Carolyn Tucker on the housing discussion, and she's going to present next time, so that'll be,
Okay.
we can take that off of tonight's agenda.
All right. That's a discussion item, so we can just pass that over. We don't need to make a motion or anything. Okay.
Correct.
All right. All right, moving right along. The next item on the agenda is the interview for the Planning and Zoning Commissioner, and it's Jennifer Step-Isnick.
Good job.
All right, if you could jump up front here. Turn this over to Clerk McIntyre.
Mayor, we did put a call out for planning commissioners due to our recent resignation from Commissioner Leitzinger, and we did receive an application from Ms. Stepiznik, and she's here tonight to answer your questions and hopefully be appointed.
All right, sounds good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you just do a little?
I'm Jennifer Stepiznik. I have been a Silt resident for, I was thinking about that. It's been almost 22 years that I've lived in Silt. We've been on Belgian Loop for the last 14. Born in Virginia, raised in Utah. I have a family and looking forward to speaking to you.
Okay, sounds good. Do any board members have any questions for Jennifer?
I do, but I'm happy to wait.
No, go ahead.
Have you ever applied for the Board of P and Z or council or anything before?
No.
Why now?
I feel like I need to give back to my community. We do need development in Silt, and I would like to be more of a part of that.
Can I ask a follow-up question? How do you plan to drive development in Silt?
I don't know. So first off, I don't know what the P and Z board does per se. Like I have no idea. I just know that I would like to support my community, and I feel like this is probably a good level for me to get in. I have a title background. I work in mortgage. I know that there's a need. I just don't know how to contribute besides this. So I will learn.
Hey Jennifer, Kyle here.
Hey, Kyle.
Hi there, sorry I'm not there in person. So I just wanted to let everybody know, I've had the opportunity to kind of work alongside Jennifer. We're in kind of the same arena for work, and she's been into my old office a couple times, just doing some training classes for real estate brokers, etc. But she always made it a point to kind of seek me out and just kind of have a chit chat regarding the town of Silt, and what she was seeing and what she might have been concerned with, what we're doing on the board. So even before her application to this board, it was apparent to me that she was at least involved and concerned about what was going on in the town of Silt. So when I saw Jennifer's name as an applicant, I was really excited. I think that she'll be a really good asset for the P&Z board and for the town, and she would definitely have my full support.
Thanks, Kyle.
Welcome.
I guess the only question I have is what direction do you feel the town should go in?
As far as development,
As-
I mean,
yeah, I guess it's kind of
honestly,
the
we
same.
need commercial development. We need more residential, development. Our downtown needs help. It needs some work. I mean, I would like to be a fresh set of eyes on that. So you can affect change at a local level. So here I am.
Well, thank you for that answer. I don't have anything else.
All right. Since you have been in Silt for a long time, is there anything that you've seen get developed that you would have been opposed to?
Maybe not so much developed, but maybe annexed, yes.
Okay.
So, do you want me to elaborate on that?
If you could, yeah.
The church up First Street, what did that bring to the town of Silt besides, giving them sewer and water? They don't bring any tax revenue.
Okay.
I would just, I would ask, how did that make sense? But
Okay. And then we have codes, planning and zoning that
for
follows
sure,
codes.
yeah.
As a member on that board potentially, do you feel that those codes are black and white? Are they gray?
I feel we all work in a gray area in that aspect. I mean, it's sort of like the law. I mean, the law says what it says. However, I believe that everybody interprets that in their own way, right? And that's when we have judges and attorneys to differentiate, correct?
Okay. All right. I have no further questions, and I would definitely be in favor of Jennifer becoming a member of the board, so. Are there any further questions by any trustees?
No, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to appoint Jennifer Stepiznik to the P&Z board.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Knott to appoint Jennifer Step-Isnik to the Planning and Zoning Commission, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All is opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for applying, yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jennifer.
Thanks, Kyle. Look forward to seeing you.
Same.
Nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll have lots of conversations. Thank you. See you guys.
Next on the agenda is the Regional Detoxification Service, Social Setting Withdrawal Management Agreement with Debbie Wild. If you'd like to. No?
Debbie Wild used to be the executive director at USUM. I I'm not Debbie Wild. I'm with you, so.
Okay, you look very familiar.
Is she zooming?
Is she Zooming with us?
I do not see her on.
I don't see her either.
Okay, well, we can just table that one for a minute and see if she
You
joins.
might be thinking it's a little closer to 7:30 for her presentation based on prior discussions.
Okay, all right. Well, Youth Zone's here with us.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
So we will just,
That worked out.
we will move on to the Youth Zone annual presentation and request for support.
I'll do this.
All right, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Jamie Hayes. I am
Thank
the
you.
executive director. I had a full day of work today. I was boots on the ground, so if I look a little casual, my apologies. I'm the new executive director. I've been there for a little over a year now. Coming up in April, it'll be 2 years. My experience over the last 20 years has been in school settings, educational settings, as a school leader and a coach, and I spent the majority of my time in public education working very closely with students with behavioral and emotional disabilities, and just recently left the Roaring Fork School District as the manager of the AN program, the Affective Needs Program. So those are kids who have severe dysregulated responses to their world and are labeled with a social emotional disability. So I come to this work, I come to this world with a huge heart of advocacy for kids who struggle and families who need support for all kinds of reasons. And so just a little bit about myself. I'll let Carol introduce herself.
Hi, thanks for having us. My name's Carol Wolf, and I am the Development Director at Youth Zone. I've been in the nonprofit business for about 17 years now and was hired, I always have a story about this, right? I was hired by Youth Zone on March 1st of 2020 as their fundraiser. It's been quite the journey, and so appreciate the support from Town of Silt so very, very much. We'll start out with that.
We cruise around to our town councils all up and down the valley, parachute to Aspen, to recognize you for the support that you give us, make sure that you know the impact that that has on youth and families specifically in your community and in Garfield County and in the school district that is here. So I'm gonna do a little numbers talking and a little storytelling. Perfect. A little numbers talking and storytelling. And please, it's an open discussion. So if you want to stop me and have any questions, it's a very short presentation. But I'll start with, is everyone in the room familiar with Youth Zone or online and the work we do?
Great.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
You've supported us for many years.
Yeah.
Again, we appreciate that.
So-
You're really the backbone of what we do.
Our communities are the backbone, and hopefully we serve to be a good foundation for creating healthy families and healthy systems and communities as well for you. Our mission, vision, and core values remain the same. They've been the same for many years. We continue to take kids in who are referred to us by schools, by courts, by law enforcement, by youth and families themselves. And we start every intake with a pretty comprehensive assessment that assesses 5 areas of risk. And in any of those areas, if those areas are of high risk, we know that that is an area to design an intervention plan around. So we'll talk a little bit about our core services and how we work with our community partners, but our assessment and our survey is the, what do we call that? The bread and butter of who we are and
It's
what
our
we
secret
do.
sauce.
Our secret sauce, yes. Our goal, when we receive a referral from one of our community partners, is to really disrupt dysregulated behaviors in response to some kind of stress or something that's happening in their environment. We do that by meeting with families, parent education, one-on-one youth coaching, substance education classes, the list goes on and on. Go ahead. I don't know. who's guiding this right here? Somebody from home, huh? I talked a little bit about our youth screening and our survey. These are the 5 areas of risk and asset. So again, as I said, when a score is high or low, of high risk or low risk, we use these scores to determine our plan of care, and we create that plan of care alongside our families, our youth in the room, and sometimes our referral partners. If those referral partners are school, we invite our schools to the table in order to create a really comprehensive plan of care and a plan of action. Go ahead. These are some of the programs and services that we provide. These are the same, and they've been the same over many years, with the exception of a few. So I'll highlight the few that we're really leaning in on right now because of the data that we see. As we know, substance use and abuse in our valley, substance use with youth, is on the rise. It is a significant reason for many of the referrals that we receive. Almost 80% right now of all referrals that we receive have some substance need. And the majority of our substances that we're seeing right now, some of our top flyers, are marijuana. So possession of marijuana, use, driving while under the influence of marijuana, and distribution of marijuana. So pretty significant. The second substance that we see is alcohol. So those are the 2 primary substances that we intervene with. Of course, we see a lot of others depending on the situation, but in this area, those are the 2 primary substances that we see. As a result of that, we know that substance intervention, substance education is an immense need for our community. And historically, we had one person in our organization who was servicing our youth and families who needed substance intervention, all the way from Aspen to Parachute. Now that we're seeing it pervasive across families, across communities, across cultures, it just looks a little bit different everywhere. We know that our youth advocates and every human at YouZone needs to be equipped to be able to provide substance education to anyone who walks in the door and to all families. So we've increased our services in the areas of substance by increasing the knowledge of our staff and the expertise of our staff so that we have more touch points. The other area that we've really increased our services and our interventions is in the area of youth coaching. We have certified a member of our team from the Youth Coaching Institute to provide, it's basically life skills coaching for kids. And we have done that because we know that there is very solid research around prevention before we get to the highest level of expensive mental health intervention and need. Mental health is very effective and important for youth and families who need it. We know how to identify those kids through our survey, but we also know that not every youth and every family needs that intensive of an intervention first. So we are in the process right now of training up our staff to provide youth coaching and to work within a youth coaching framework, and we try that first before we try something that's even more expensive.
The other thing that we're dabbling in is also parent coaching.
Yep, parent coaching
Goes
through
along
parent
right with it.
education. That's right. Our service fee when families walk in the door continues to be $150 for the assessment. We don't always charge the family for that fee or the youth for that fee, depending on where the referral comes from. That $150 assessment fee covers 3 to 6 months of services. So although a normal or an average cost to youth for us to provide services for 3 to 6 months is somewhere around $2,000, depending on how intensive the case is, the only fee that we charge is $150. We never turn family away, we never turn kids away, and the funding that we get from municipalities and from our schools helps us to offset that cost or eliminate that cost completely. Some of our donors, we just had a donor a few weeks ago that made a surprise donation, and they want that to go into scholarships for kids and families who are unable to pay the cost of that assessment fee. Do you have any
Yeah,
more?
because that fee is $150, that is only about 5 to 7% of our budgeted income. The rest comes from grants, state funding, fundraisers, and generous municipalities like yourself. That's why you see why it's so important to us.
You can go ahead to the next slide. One of our big areas of focus in the last year and a half has been to analyze what are the barriers for our families and to really work to decrease those barriers. We know that getting to services, transportation, is a huge barrier for families. So we have established satellite offices in all communities from Aspen to Parachute, and we do whatever we can to meet families where it's most convenient for them. Family work days are hard. They work 2 or 3 jobs, and we do the best we can to meet them where it's most convenient at as much as possible. Sometimes it's not always possible, but we really work hard to prioritize that. We also have language can be another barrier for some families, so we are working now with an interpretation service. That's a 24-hour, 7 days a week interpretation service. We have an in-person interpretation service, Global Languages, that provide a little more intimate setting with a person there who's interpreting. But in the event that it's a surprise call or a rescheduled call and we can't get someone there, or we're responding in the middle of the night, and this happens in Silt and Rifle and Parachute, in all of our communities. When there is a crisis call, that means there's a call that comes in and a youth is being, detention is on the table, being sent to detention for a pretty high offense in the community. That's a dangerous offense. We show up with law enforcement and with the family, and if interpretation is needed, then that 24/7 interpretation service is available. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Let's go ahead and skip to the next one. That way we have time for questions. In Garfield County alone, on average, we serve about 282 youth a year. And that impacts, as you know, when youth come in, they come in with their families. So when we have families in the room and we're also providing parent consult, family education, substance education to the family, and family coaching, that really impacts a larger number, and the ripple effect is pretty powerful, especially if they have younger youth in the home and they're applying some of the same strategies as they're parenting their younger children. And go ahead and go to the next slide. In Silt alone, and the data sheet that you have is the most updated one. This was sent before the update. There are 29 youth that we served in the last year in Silt alone. And so it's just kind of good to know that that number of youth in each community is very different, but in Silt, 29 it's a good number. It's a solid number. A lot of intervention hours here. We work very closely. Most of our referrals in Silt, this diagram here just kind of shows you where most of our referrals come from. Most come from court, and every community is a little bit different. Some communities like to refer prior to a ticket. So in some communities, our referrals from law enforcement and schools look a little bit bigger. In the city of Silt, most of ours come from court, diversion. We have a little bit that comes from schools. In Garfield, or in RE2, that's much bigger. We now have a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the RE2 school district, and we're working closely to increase referrals and those collaborations at the school level as well. Go ahead. And then the question we always ask ourselves is, how do we know it's working? We now are implementing quarterly planning days with our staff, where we look at our survey results, our pre and post survey results, and we check in. What are those indicators of progress that we're seeing in our kids who we're providing certain services to? Where are we seeing the most growth? Where do we have some more questions around what types of services might be a better fit? Are we on the right track? And like Carol said, our survey, our pre and post survey, is really our special, it's our magic sauce. It's how we determine we're moving the needle in our communities with families and kids. So just a couple of highlights, and you have this in your packet, and I believe you do. Well, you have the PowerPoint also in your packet. You have access.
I have a really quick question about that slide, if you don't mind. Hi there, this is Kyle.
Hi.
I'm just curious, it mentions that 97% of your clients did not reoffend after working with UZone.
Correct.
What's the timeline on that? How far out are you tracking that with some of the prior youth that you've worked with?
We track that up until they graduate from high school.
Okay.
So
Got
it's a, we track it when they're working with us, and then because they're still in the juvenile system, if they reoffend again, we take them in and do another intake, and then we collect data on that in our system. Once they're beyond 18 and they're tried as an adult, we aren't tracking those longer studies, although that's something we would like to start doing. We work with a researcher, Jerry Evans. So that's a question we'd have. We'd like to blow that out a little bit farther.
Sure. And then as far as being considered a reoffender, is that solely within, the legal system and the courts, or would that also include, some of the youths continuing to get in trouble at school, whether it's being disruptive or, what have you there?
You're asking really smart questions. Right now, the recidivism rates, the data that we're gathering is specifically for court. So it's when kids re-enter the justice system and they have been ticketed again. However, the questions we're asking ourselves again as we swim upstream with our school partners, and we're working more collaboratively with our school partners, we're looking more closely at behavior records that are within the school. So are we not only moving the needle on a legal reoffense, are we moving the needle on risky behaviors that present themselves in different settings like schools and communities that aren't ticketed? Yeah, so that's a really important question, and that's one we're beginning to ask right now. We have very good relationships with our partners in schools, and obviously they have an interest in this moving the needle at their level as well.
Got it. And then one last question, what we've gone over so far. You had mentioned the satellite offices that you guys have to make it convenient to meet with the families. Do any of the counselors or employees of Youth Zone do any type of home visits with the children, or do you guys leave that up to, like a juvenile probation officer if they have one to kind of, tackle the home issue, if you will?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. It's not a part of our typical practice to do home visits. We meet families in their communities, and we offer options like, would you like to meet at the library if people aren't comfortable meeting at the school? So we provide a lot of different options. We don't often have families who say, I'd prefer to meet at my home.
Sure.
However, if they did say, I'd prefer to meet at my home, we would have to run a little bit different protocol around how that works. Typically, just from a school setting standpoint and a procedural protocol setting, we would go probably two people to a home if that were the case. We are in homes sometimes when we do those 24/7 crisis response calls. It just kind of depends on where the client is at that time and where we show up. If they've been moved to the court, or if they've been moved somewhere, then we show up wherever they are. Sometimes that's home, but then we're never there without law enforcement at that time.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Are there any other questions? We've kind of moved there.
I have a question,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
I've got one after you. Go ahead.
Talk to me about prevention. Are there any tools, resources that Youth Zone offers from a preventative standpoint? And my mindset is one of it's cheaper to prevent than it is to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm wondering from a funding and usage standpoint, where do those funds align? I guess as a follow-up question to
Yeah.
the prevention branch of the Youth Zone tree.
So when we look at that pie chart and we see court as one of our biggest referral sources, we still exist in that space because when families and kids get into that situation, it's very scary. We want to prevent that from going further. So at the top tier of prevention, that's still prevention, especially if it's their first time. The last year, our big push to create relationships and agreements with schools so that we have a service agreement, we have an MOU. When we talk about swimming upstream with our school partners and our community partners from sort of the highest point of referral source, which for us is courts, we encourage our school partners and law enforcement to refer before it gets to a ticket, so that we have kids who are displaying some very high-risk behaviors before it gets ticketed. We don't ever want to do that in lieu of our law enforcement partners who are really in charge of a victim-centered safety model. So when it gets to that point, we want to make sure that our law enforcement is engaged as well. But our work with schools is the prevention piece. Our work with family resource centers is the prevention piece. And it's us working with them, helping them to understand what does a just right referral look like for us that isn't a ticketed offense, that comes prior to court.
And with the court system, the preventative part is getting them through a restorative practice or life skills classes so that they don't go back to the court again for some offense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any of the services that we provide can be used as a preventative measure, and they're very effective. We have to get our referrals to come in before it gets to court. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Life skills classes, youth coaching, they're all preventative measures. We are working our way more into community education. And so we have a couple of people trained with youth mental health first aid so that we can educate communities as well. We haven't really exploded out that model, but that's where we're headed. It's working with our municipalities on substance education and substance training for our communities, how to recognize it, how to handle it, and then youth mental health first aid as well. So that would be another sort of point of prevention that is on the cusp of gaining some traction, and we're just in those planning stages right now.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one more question?
Go for it.
Then I'm done, I
No,
promise.
go for it. No.
You can ask all the questions you want.
Totally unrelated, and based on the discussion we had for an hour and a half earlier, talk to me about your budget. Do you guys end the year in a debt state? Do you have a balanced budget mandate? What does that look like financially, especially because you're driven by donation? If I gave you $1,000 this year, am I paying off last year's debt or am I paying off next year's work?
Good question. And I'm happy to say that in 2018, I'm looking at Deb, when
Support team, off the bench.
She used to be the ED.
baby.
That's right. That's right. Houston went through a capital campaign project so that we could purchase the old library and refurbish it for our uses. So for a couple years, they were definitely in the red. In fiscal 2020, 2021, we ended in the black for the first time, and I'm happy to say that last year we ended in the black again. So your $1,000 does not go to debt.
We have a very healthy endowment. We have a very healthy reserve fund. And although donations are something we really rely on and count on, we also have a very solid grant base. So we have state grants, municipal grants. We haven't yet dabbled in federal grants yet because that also comes with a lot, as you know, a lot of other
Grant writers.
Strings attached.
Strings.
Strings attached.
Federal comes with a lot of
Cables,
strings.
Yeah.
thick cables.
Yeah, so we're in a good place. We have an incredible finance committee, professionals in our community that help guide and shepherd us so that we're investing well and making good decisions.
And we
You're-
budget to a zero budget.
And you're a 501c3?
Nonprofit to the literal sense.
To the literal sense.
That's outstanding. I mean, there aren't that many
Yeah.
nonprofits that are economically sustainable and meet a zero budget
we're
from a
killing
debt
it.
perspective. That's remarkable. You
I
should
don't
be-
want to jinx it, but we're killing it right now.
That's very impressive, and a tribute to both the operational as well as the strategic sort of facets of the organization. So congratulations on that. That is not
And
an
the
easy thing to
foundation
do.
it was built on.
Thank you very much.
To all three of you. How about that?
Thank you.
I'm done.
Yes.
You're done?
Thank you.
All right. Do you have anything before I go?
No, I feel all my questions are gonna be answered.
All right, sounds good. Mine has to do specifically with silt. It says this in your chart that 75% of referrals were female. That's, I don't know about anybody else, that's mind-boggling to me. I thought
It's
it would be.
interesting. There are only a few communities that have bubbled up like that. Typically, and over the course of time, we see it pretty equal.
Equal.
So I would not say that that is a trend.
Okay.
I would just say reporting on what we have right now for the last fiscal year, that's what we see. Not a trend. If it happens again in the next couple of years, then I would say, wow, this is a bit of an anomaly in our valley. We should ask the question, what's going on in Silt with our young women? And I would not say that that's an area where I would pay a lot of attention in
Okay.
terms of digging into the data.
That's where I was at. I was like, is there something that, as a community, we can do to help that
I love that.
that number?
Love that.
And then my second question is the self-parent
Mm-hmm.
reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why those are lumped together instead of self and parent? 'Cause
Are you talking about referrals?
for referrals, yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
There isn't a reason for that, but we always like feedback from our community
Yes.
members. If it's more helpful for that to be disaggregated, so you can see how many kids are requesting help on their own and how many parents are requesting that help, then we can do that next time.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to see
Yeah,
that data. I think it's
Yeah, that's
a
a good question.
big difference
Okay.
between if I see a chart with a self referral,
mm-hmm,
then I feel like they're getting more of the basics up front
mm-hmm,
and saying, before I do something, I want to take care of it now.
yep,
And I actually think that's a big place where we are in our culture anymore, is not taking care of yourself until it's
Too late.
somebody's there to help you out with it.
yep.
So I just think that little bit of data would skew which way things are going.
It would be interesting to see how that aligns with the 75% female as well.
Like, where does that 75 layer over self versus parent?
Parent.
That may be where you see the statistical commonality.
Mm-hmm. If you have specific questions like that and you want to email me, I can disaggregate that. I was just neck deep in data analysis today because we're getting ready to kind of unpack things like that we're seeing right now. What are the trends that we're seeing? Why are we seeing that? And ask all kinds of questions around that. So email and then I can
Okay,
get more specific for you.
all right. And then Debbie has helped over the years with changing my view on this. I've always had this thing about a kid goes to court, pays the $150 to get $2,000 worth of services. I've always been like, why are we spending citizens' money when I feel that individual should be ponying up the $2,000? I mean, that's part of a life lesson. You make a mistake, you have to deal with the ramifications. But over the years, it's been graciously explained to me how it's the preventative. So we're trying to prevent, if we invest X number of dollars of a citizen's money at this stage, we're not supporting this person to be potentially in Garfield County Jail for 5 years.
That's right, and there's a reason that they haven't gotten help up to that
Up to
point. Sometimes the trigger for families is, right, they're engaged with the court system, and thank goodness. And the reason no help has happened up until that point are barriers that we spoke to. Calling a counselor in the valley, getting on anyone's list, and having it be affordable is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we can be there as a support for families, knowing that they've gotten this far without a lot of help and support, then that's their level of engagement. And we're willing to work real hard to raise funds in order to provide that type of support. Yeah.
Are there other ways to get that reimbursement? That's a great point. Like, if it's not gonna come in money, can it come in the form of advocacy? Can it come in the form of some other? I view, narrowly as it may be, issues with substance abuse through the lens of alternatives. If they have viable alternatives, they are less inclined. And if they've been through the service and it's helped them and they see the value, but they can't pay you back fiscally, is there an opportunity to encourage them to stay the course via something like advocacy, ambassadorial stuff, where they in essence preach,
Giving
if you'll
back to the
forgive the
community.
religious specific terminology, they will preach the gospel about the values of the service, and not monetarily, but keep them on the right path and spread the good word, as it were.
I really appreciate that lens of thinking. I think we get closer to that, and we can always do a better job when kids are involved in repairing harm as a part of their service to the community, especially if it's substance related or if it's violence or something else. We try and create an environment where they're giving back in some way. So often kids will have to create presentations, for example, around substance use and the impacts of substance use, and present that somewhere as a part of their work in our community. I can't say that it happens 100% of the time, because it just depends on the youth. It depends on their willingness to engage, their ability to be able to do that, and our ability to be able to find a really safe environment for that to happen for them.
We try to present good opportunities for that. We just had a fundraiser a week or so ago, it's a youth film fest. So we encourage our clients to put together a 5 to 7 minute film clip of what their world looks like, and sometimes we have films like that that are associated with getting the word out about their story.
That's creative.
Not, as Jamie
Thank you.
said, we can't require it, and sometimes they just aren't willing to share those kind of things.
I would just like to thank Youth Zone as a parent that has used their service. Very responsive, lot of good results. It was an outstanding, for the situation that it was, Youth Zone really helped, and it was an outstanding relationship between parents, kids, Youth Zone that we went through personally with them. So it's a great program. If you ask me, it was definitely worth getting them involved in the situation that we had.
Thank you.
For sharing.
Yeah, I don't have anything other than I did notice, how the females' percentage was higher here than overall. It was male was 67%, which I did think that was odd. But yeah, I mean, looking at this, yeah, I mean, they're asking, $4,000 for, in return, it's basically for $52,000 is the value to this community for our,
And we fundraise for our communities above the 4,000, obviously. We get funding from Garfield County Commissioners, Health and Human Services grants, so we work hard. And every tiny little bit makes a big difference. So, thank you.
All right. We'll let you, did you want to, do you have
Okay.
a continuation? I don't think we have more
No,
questions.
we
Okay.
are way over our allotted
We're
time,
way
so thank
over,
you.
and
No,
Did we?
we're
These-
just
as it says, these are all
grateful.
estimated times, so sometimes they run over.
Thanks for having us tonight.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you so much.
This is an action item. They are asking for a $4,000 request for funding.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
I have no problem at all funding it. I guess the only question is the amount.
Just to be clear, they're asking for $4,000, and we've got it included in the 2023 budget.
Oh,
So-
okay.
By approving that budget, you would be approving the request when we do that in December.
So we don't need to take a specific
Or
action.
you can talk about
on
it tonight, either
Okay.
way, whatever you want to do.
I mean, as long as it's in the budget, we can, during budget, have those conversations if we want that to be greater than $4,000, so.
So the check will effectively be in the mail.
Yes.
How about that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right.
We are grateful for the support.
Yes, thanks.
Yes, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah. All right. Now we will go ahead and jump back to the Regional Detoxification Services Agreement and invite Debbie Wild up to the table here.
Debbie Wild's here to talk, follow up the conversation we had a couple, 3 months ago or so.
Yeah, it's been a little while,
A lot
hasn't
of
it?
work's been going on since then, right, Debbie?
A lot of work. They
You'll
kept
be happy
looking
to-
back at me. Some of you know that I was at Youth Zone, that was my first job here after those 3 months of being a maid at the Hotel Colorado. That was, and developing that assessment and all those sorts of things. So it's terrific to see how that's still working, how it's still working for communities. And the segue to that is that my motto always has been no effort after foolishness. So if I'm involved in a project, it's to get something done, be sure it's done right, and be sure it's sustainable, just like you saw with Youth Zone. So that's what we've really tried to build into this big project for the community with what we call the social setting withdrawal management. The one thing that I had to hand out to you that was a question last
Thank you.
time, and I don't, Jeff is thinking that he didn't, I had this figured out like by 9 PM on that evening, because I was on Zoom. But the question came up about how did the demographics, how about over here too? Since you're there, official table. Get back into my space. The demographics of what I presented, the demographics that we're using our hospital emergency departments fit with what the regular demographics were of our county. So they're not quite apples to apples, but that tells you what our Garfield County piece is and the stats for the hospital EDs with substance uses, which is what we were figuring is equivalent to kind of these would be in detox. And interesting that, and we saw this in our numbers, and it's not a surprise to those working with substances that we're really represented by the Caucasian male between the ages of 30 and 64. I mean, that's who's really using those services. You talked about the self-referrals, and just going back to that, one of those slides that I had presented last time about where the referrals were coming from, that 34% of those, which we were a little bit surprised about too, were actually self-referrals into the emergency rooms for substance use. With other and with family and with primary care, I mean, at 41% were that, and as we had suspected, 57% was our EMS services. So just because that question had come up, I just thought, oh yeah, we looked at that too here. Now, left from last time, unless you've got some other comments or questions, is now that we have a final agreement. And again, lots of work, lots of partners, but I think what the piece about the agreement is, it really gives us a lot of guardrails. I think it gives a lot of clear direction so people aren't stepping into this kind of making it up now. We've really come to the table, really telling you what it is we're trying to accomplish, what MindSpring's role is, what the role is of the funding partners, having a governance council, which is the other thing we need to ask you for a representative to that group. Not an overwhelming thing. There'll be a little bit of work getting stuff started, but that's where I want to help that group really get started, so we have some good oversight. And I always talk about a program being very agile, right? I mean, we don't want to get to the end of the year and then go, oh, oops, this is how things were going, but really keep up on that, just with quarterly reports and as we go along, so especially in the building time. Okay, now I'll just stop and see if you have any other questions, and my ask tonight is for $2,000, which we have in this agreement, the signing of the agreement, and somebody as a rep. So 3 things, I guess, really.
So I would note that that our firm has reviewed the proposed agreement on behalf of several of the municipalities in Garfield County. Most have been adopting the agreement by a resolution, and I would, bring this back at the next meeting with a resolution and the proposed agreement, so you can take a look at it. But essentially, there's not really further negotiations about about the form of the agreement. The parties have worked, I think, pretty hard on getting the language finalized. There was concern about language the county wanted in the agreement as to whether it was Tabor compliant. We've worked through that issue. So I think what we have to bring to council for final approval will, it will be legally acceptable if the board chooses to adopt it.
This was adopted by Glenwood Springs on Thursday of last week. The county, I think, had it on theirs yesterday. So those are two of the big funders. We're really asking everybody to move it through October, right, to have all the signatures by October, because this goes hand in hand with then starting the construction work. And we've got that grant from Office of Behavioral Health for construction, which was somewhere around $700,000, that the county is the fiscal agent for. So a lot of parts and pieces, and we're just kind of moving the balls down the field, and we all have to get there basically at the same time. But it's time to get this done. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I read that article in today's paper over the Glenwood City Council,
yeah.
where some of them had some reservations over the whole Mine Springs aspect of it.
Well, Mine Springs has just been in the press, hasn't it? So some of us, and that's what I say to you, I would not be, and the same with Glenwood City and the same with the county, I would not be bringing you a proposal if I had reservations that, feels shaky. Others of us have had a chance to sit down with Mine Springs and really work through those things all along and ask the questions, which is what we don't see in a lot of the press articles. It's like, well, what does Mine Springs say to that? Because there is other parts to the stories. The long and the short of it is running a detox, a social setting withdrawal management, as it's called now, because it's much more involved than the detox ideas used to be, is not something that just anybody can do. There's nobody waiting in the wings saying, oh, hey, let us do it, let us do it. It's a tough thing, and it's the kind of thing that you do tend to turn to your mental health organization, who will take Medicaid, who will meet those kinds of gaps that private industry is just not stepping up for. That's the reality of that. Still, were I concerned that Mine Springs couldn't pull this off, I would still not be bringing this forward. But they have, and their new director as well, really given us their focus and attention. So I don't feel like we're a secondhand project or anything by any means, and have really pledged to really focus on this. I think some of the other things we're seeing are different than what we're dealing with here. But there's no guarantees of anything, right? What we've done is worked on an agreement that answers a whole bunch of those questions and puts as many guardrails in as we can, and on and off ramps, as Carl, Hamlet calls them, so that if you go, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't working, we have a way to get out, right? Those kinds of things. So I think that's what's really critical about this, and it makes it really clear who does what, I think. So we're not leaving a lot of questions. So I hope you see that in the agreement.
Oh, yes, thank you for that, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the part that really answers a lot of what we might have concerns about.
What would the plan be if Mine Springs does dissolve and you have spent $700,000 on their building? Is there
Yes, there is a
any
plan.
recourse at that
Yes.
point?
Yes. The way that money is given from the state asked for someone to guarantee, because they want to see a 3-year project, to guarantee the pieces of that were operational, which were about, I think, 140,000, and the county signed off on that. So the state could come back and say, ooh, wait, this only lasted 2 years, you know, we want X amount of dollars back, and it would be up to that amount, and the county has signed off to say, we agree that we'll stand up for those dollars.
Okay.
And you can see that in here, we've got really tight pieces. This money, you know, any money you put in is used specifically for this. That's what the governance piece, you know, council's looking at, right? Getting the financials, all of those pieces like that, so our dollars don't go somewhere else. They're not used for debt. They're not used for, you know, if somebody gets in trouble for something. So all of that's really put together here. One of the things I really like too is we've got 2 hospitals involved and their financial teams. And so they understand all this Medicaid billing and much more the kind of budget with some of the client-based pieces of this, right, that we would look at and kind of go, not sure. So between all of those folks on a team, Mindspring's very interested in being transparent. There's never been a problem with that. I think we're in good shape, and I feel like that's what the attorneys are telling us too. You know, what they're looking for is, do we have enough pieces here to address any of your concerns? And you have to answer to your public, of course, for that. So that's what we've really put together. That's what the attorneys have looked at closely. And you also have to answer, right, to say, hey, here's a project we've all been needing for years, and we have an opportunity to step up and get something done for our citizens. So I think that's everybody, all the boards are mentioning that or recognizing that as well. Anything else?
Just for our town administrator, we had discussed that this money was gonna come from our opioid settlement money, but we're gonna receive far less than the $2,000. So at that point, we would be general fund, or would this be something that would fall underneath the Vail funding?
I don't know off the top of my head, we'd have to check in with Sheila and see what the, I don't know the answer to that. Do you know, Mike?
My gut tells me it's probably not Vail appropriate, because generally that money is used for crime restitution. You can look at it though,
Okay.
and see how broad the spending category is on that.
Okay.
We're seeing that kind of evolve too, I think, in the state and the way they're looking at dollars, and it might be the kind of thing that Vail expands to. For example, opioid said, yeah, this for sure fits, right? We've checked that really thoroughly. There's absolutely a recognition at the state level that detoxification or a unit like this is a critical piece for communities or for a catchment area. So we're finding in our conversations that I would anticipate even that we're looking at the possibility of other state dollars down the road for sure. And how that'll evolve, don't know. I mean, the first part of it is, it's the same thing you hear from USON. Look, if the stakeholders who are using this in their community show up with some dollars, even those, you know, you're putting in less than 1% of what the total operating of this thing is, right, and of the total piece. That's what people need to know to come to the table with more dollars. I mean, that's what will get the state dollars, et cetera, because people will say, okay, communities recognize this. We've got all the towns, the county, and 2 hospitals, right, that are signing off to this. That matters. When we get into operating it, we'll have better ideas about where people are coming from. Are they in unincorporated Garfield County? I thank the commissioners for their support, right? Because we recognize not everybody's from the incorporated towns. So we'll be able to have a better understanding. And I'm sure the Governance Council will be coming to the table and doing more shuffling and saying, hey, you know, who could pitch in a little more? Here's what your citizens are using, et cetera. But that's why we've got all these great people at the table. But for now, I've said to the larger funders, yes, you're right. It isn't a fair across-the-board shake, but we need you to step up. We need your leadership, and we need you to take a big chunk of this to get it started. And that's particularly Garfield County, Glenwood Springs, and Valley View have really taken that leadership role.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can chime in, the town code does say that the bail money can be used to purchase equipment, police training programs, community outreach, crime prevention, and drug prevention, while the bylaws also offer a provision of services for early crisis intervention.
I would say you probably could.
Seems like a good
Yeah,
place
sounds
to,
right, yeah.
Take it from
to
there.
take it from.
It fits.
I think for the first year, I'd be good with whatever we get for our opioid money, plus using the Vail fund if we can, if not, the general fund. I expressed my concern before about these people coming in for detox and getting referred to Mind Springs as just being a funnel system for Mind Springs clients.
But that's not I know, and thank you for that, that is my exact input, and that is one of the things we've talked thoroughly with Mind Springs and their staff, and a lot of the governance pieces that we have, because that's not how this will be. This came up, and just to address that, John Sheenan, who's the new CEO, right, we talked about this a couple Mondays ago at the commissioner meeting, and, you know, his philosophy is to, look, we have so much need for mental health and substance help, as many people so we can get involved, right? The more the better, and we've made it really clear, this is not a circle in, you know, out the back door to Mind Springs. So you can be sure that's going to be watched. We talk about community staffing, and that's kind of the way we want to do this model. I think Mind Springs is at the place too of saying, no, not everything to us. You know, who else will help and show up at the table? Although Mind Springs has some good follow-up services for treatment and things as well. So that'd definitely be one of the players. But thank you for that input.
So once you
Yeah.
get going, will that definitely be data that we have, is how many people went in and how many people went?
Yeah, what's their next step, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Specifically if you can see where they're going, because next year if you come back and if 80-90% of people are getting referred to Mind Springs,
Yeah.
then I will not be on board to fund this.
Yeah, understood.
Programming.
Yeah, thanks. I'm thinking.
Um,
Yeah, and did they get to treatment, right? Are we able to make the kind of connection for treatment? I mean, that's really our ultimate goal. Did we get them into kind of now the strategy and the steps that we have for housing issues? Because that's there's all these auxiliary things, right, that are really the real issues here for people. So, yeah, we'll be watching all of that and looking at that for sure. Yeah.
All right.
So we need a good governance council person, rep. I mean, that could be Jeff, it could be staff, or it could be, an elected official. But someone there, and that's part of what we'll be doing. We wrote that in the agreement, if you saw several of the data points, which are minimally, right, and we can add to that. So we've even put some of those in the agreement.
Okay. And then for our attorney, just what's the benefit of doing a resolution instead of just approving the action item on the agenda tonight?
I don't know, usually for larger contracts, we approve them by a resolution. That being said, this Silt's contribution is not that substantial, so it seems like a voice vote probably could work, and we have this as an action item, so.
Okay.
Attorney Sawyer, are you comfortable with the transparency requirements that are layered into the agreement now? I approached this from the fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Sorry, I got those backwards. It's late. Are you comfortable with the protections that are embedded in the new agreement that prevent, as far as reasonably can be prevented, more transgressions from Mind Springs going forward?
I can tell you that my firm reviewed this on behalf of 4 different communities in Garfield County, each of whom had, differing types of concerns, but the transparency was one of them. And, we did our best to craft, working with the other members, that our stakeholders in this, provisions that provide, governing board and informational requirements and, I think that what has been prepared gives the municipalities, as well as the county, adequate levers to ensure that they're getting information to evaluate outcomes in the use of the money. Is there a possibility down the road that, as the mayor indicated, that this deal could fall apart? Yes, but that's true of any contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any further questions?
No, I don't. I've just been following along. I would be okay with funding the $2,000 here. And, I think just the overall view of everything as far as the transparency goes, I don't know that I'm overly concerned with that. I know this has been a long time in the making and they've worked really hard to make this work. So I'm on board with this.
Yeah, so am I, and then we can reevaluate it next year.
Okay. Sounds good. Then would someone like to make a motion?
Oh, well, I guess I'll make a motion then. I'll make a motion that I'll make a motion to, I'll make a motion for the Silt Board of Trustees to contribute $2,000 to the Regional Detoxification Service Withdrawal Management. That's not the right. To the Regional Detoxification Service.
And I think that,
We have to approve the agreement also.
yeah, I think it would.
Okay, and
I-
approve the agreement.
Yeah, so I think the motion would be, a motion to approve the Regional Detoxification Service Social Setting Withdrawal Management Agreement, between the town of Silt, Garfield County, and other parties, together with an appropriation of funds in the amount of $2,000 from the sources identified by the mayor, to fund, said contributions in the fiscal year 2022.
23,
I'm sorry, 2023.
Did
Oh.
you get all that?
yeah, so it's for,
No, mine train wreck wasn't even close to that.
Got it for you, Chris.
Oh,
Sheila, do you have that down?
I do, if you want to, just so move.
oh, so move.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Clausen.
So seconded?
So second. Okay, all right. We have a motion by trustee Clausen to approve the contract agreement wording per our town attorney, which Sheila has documented, seconded by trustee Hanrahan. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
awesome.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for your leadership, because that, will give me yet one more group that, as I get to the next, each one, you're all in this together, you're in with a big group, so it's not like you're just really kind of sticking your necks out on your own, right? So I think that's really an important part. Everybody's kind of doing this together. Do you have a thought about a representative for governance? Anybody, they want to do that or appoint somebody? Not to mention any names, but.
Who's not here that we can appoint?
There's several.
Appointed in absentia.
Yeah, that's right. Who's not here? Let's
Do you
get
know
them.
when your meetings
No, so
Okay.
that group will determine that, yeah.
determine that?
Best guess, monthly, weekly, quarterly, annually?
Well, the best guess would be that it would be quarterly, but that won't start that way, right? We'll have a couple, probably a little bit intense meetings just to get our act together. But then quarterly for a bit to make sure things are off and going, and then I would imagine even just once or twice a year. I would like to write into the operations of that it's not that certainly everybody's looking at things quarterly, right? We don't want to wait for a year to get data, et cetera. So we want to set it up on a quarterly data kind of piece at least.
And could they be attended remotely?
Yes, yeah.
And I'll do it.
Good, will you be interested in doing that? No.
Yeah, my only issue is if I couldn't do it remotely, that would be a factor.
Sure,
But as
yeah,
long as
yeah.
I have the option to attend remotely.
That would be super. Yeah, that'd be great. And then you could really, be connected with
I am a
everybody.
lover of the data.
That's right, I know you. $23 a
Ask
person.
anyone ask anyone in the room.
I am too. That's why you saw those, use that Usone screening tool and all. Yeah, data talk. So we will be very focused on that and focused on outcomes. Thank you so much for your time and for your participation. And I'll keep you informed via Jeff to start with, and then I'll have my person.
Thank you.
Do you guys have an estimated time of when you want to actually open the doors?
We had hoped the beginning of the year, getting this agreement, has its drug on to really get all the parts and pieces, is pushing that back. They do, I think they do have the bids now, and they've got somebody hired to oversee the bids. But it made sense, and I think this is totally right with Mine Springs, not to start anything with construction till it was really clear that the communities were saying, hey, we're go.
Yep.
You know, we've got agreement, we're signed, okay, now let's start that piece of it. So that's the moving the ball together, so.
Okay.
So we'll keep you informed what that means, but I bet that's some delay, unless we can really get construction moving, which is,
Yeah.
But
that's another
reasonably
issue.
speaking, Q2, Q3.
Yeah, probably Q2 maybe. I don't know. Now when we get this done, and they're looking at their construction folks, because that was the other part of the issue with supply and all that.
Of course.
But they have all the permits, all of those pieces. We've got this stuff to build out. So now when I can say, hey, people are really lined up to sign this, be thinking that we're a go by the end of October, I think we'll be good. So Jeff will get me a signed copy, please. And then I will have that for the governance committee, all of the signed copies. I'll create file of all the critical documents, and that's how we'll kind of keep this going forward.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is going to be resolution number 19, series 2022. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Silt, Colorado, approving the amended and restated subdivision improvement and development agreement for the Camarillo Planned Unit Development Subdivision Phase 2 in the Town of Silt, Colorado. I will ask our applicants to come up to the table, and I'll turn it over to our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the kind of order of presentations on this agenda item will be, I'm going to give a discussion about the subdivision and improvement and development agreement. Mark will give a discussion about how the applicant has fulfilled the conditions of Resolution 13, which was enacted earlier this year by the board. And then we'll allow the applicants to provide comments and information. So as the board may remember, earlier this year, I believe back in May, if I remember. Okay. The board approved Resolution 13, which reinstated a final plat approval from 2017 for Phase 2 of the Camarillo development. The staff supported reinstating the final plat despite the passage of 5 years, because based upon reviews by the town planner and the town engineer, the materials that had been generated in support of that final plat remained valid and up to standards, and requiring the applicant to go back through the preliminary plan process for the subdivision plat seemed unproductive. Resolution 13 did impose certain conditions on the applicant. And Mark will talk about kind of the bulk of those, but one of those conditions was that the applicant and the town reach agreement on a subdivision improvement agreement or a subdivision improvement and development agreement to govern the implementation of the public improvements associated with the subdivision. There was a prior subdivision improvement agreement from 2007 that had been approved back when Camarillo was originally approved by the board. This document that we're presenting for your review and approval is an amended and restated. That simply means it supersedes the provisions of the 2007 agreement, as that document doesn't relate to the current plat and public improvements. You will note in the resolution approving the subdivision improvement and development agreement that we're proposing certain conditions. So there are some standard conditions about representations of the applicant being binding, fees being paid to the town. Then there are some specific conditions to this document, and they include that the final plat be updated with some comments that were made by myself and the town engineer. They were very minor comments, just slight wordsmithing comments. In addition, I would note that the applicants have presented a deed to me this evening whereby this property was conveyed from individual's ownership into an LLC. Very common thing to do with development property. And so we would, if a motion is made to approve the amended and restated subdivision improvements and development agreement, we would ask that you add to that motion that the town attorney will update the resolution approving that document together with the agreement itself to note the current ownership, that it's no longer in individual names, but it's been transferred to an LLC. That same change will then, of course, be made on the plat, as the plat is signed by the owner of record at the time that the plat
It's already been made.
Yeah, okay. We have included a specific condition that the construction plans be updated with edits by the town engineer. I believe, and the applicant can respond to this, that their engineer, Mr. Bell, has, I think, potentially completed those updates for what the comments that Derek, the town engineer, had made. Specific condition that the construction cost estimates be updated to include trails, landscaping, park improvements, and irrigation. Again, I understand that those changes have been made since the time that my packet memo was completed. A specific condition that the declaration of covenants be modified, and that those covenants also need to be reviewed by an attorney to be retained by the developer. Those covenants, the application included the covenants from the Camarillo Phase 1 development, which were generated in 2006, 2007. And the declarant rights under those covenants no longer allow them to be expanded to the Phase 2. And so there's going to have to be a separate set of covenants that gets recorded with a separate association for Phase 2, which, in looking at the demarcation of improvements, that doesn't bother me because I don't think there's overlapping common elements between Phase 1 and Phase 2. However, our state legislature has meddled with Kiowa substantially between 2007 and today. So there are a number of Kiowa-related requirements that didn't exist in 2007 that today need to be incorporated into a declaration of covenants. And I provided the applicants with some comments. Again, a Kiowa-specific attorney needs to go through and update those. I see this as a condition that can be reviewed by staff. Generally, a homeowners association, it's a private entity. It helps the town in that it provides a vehicle by which design guidelines and public improvements can kind of be enforced and funded. But at the end of the day, it's not directly related to the town. So, my recommendation is that prior to the final plat being recorded, that they would provide me with a copy of revised covenants for the homeowners association, and if they meet with my approval, then they can record the final plat. General conditions about impact fees being paid to the town, a specific condition to obtain an up-to-date title commitment. They have provided a new title an updated title commitment today, including an endorsement of the ownership over to the LLC that they've created. That title commitment will be, from our standpoint, good for about 60 days. If you wait longer than that to get the final plat recorded, we'll need to see an updated title commitment, but it's generally not a hard thing to do. There was in the annexation and development agreement, which goes back to 2012, a requirement that a pipe in Camarillo Phase 1 that I believe serves raw water irrigation for that development, that needed to be fixed. And Trey and I talked about this last week, and apparently that pipe has not been fixed. So that's a condition of approval that they fulfill that obligation in the ADA, get that pipe fixed before the plat is recorded.
Is that, question real quick, does that need to be fixed before the plat is recorded, or can that be fixed, the conditions in there, because it's a line item in the current construction cost estimate as well as the plans?
You're securing that. Yeah, I think if they've included that, and Trey, I don't know if you've had a chance to.
It's in Nate's your engineering plans. It's called out specifically on the plans to fix that.
Then I can, in light of that and the fact that they've included the amount in the security that they'll post to the town, I can recommend deleting condition number 8. 9, sorry, thank you. I need reading glasses. Can't read this small text anymore. So we've got a specific condition that they confirm whether or not an access permit is needed by CDOT, and again, they may have some comments on that. And then just a general condition that the owners submit security in the form acceptable to the town attorney in the amount of 110% of the estimated cost of the public improvements. So in light of Derek having had a chance between when this memo went in the packet and today to review the updated cost estimates and the updated construction plans, it sounds like we have fulfilled those 2 items. I'm going to recommend they stay as conditions of the approval, just so I can go back and triangulate with Derek that in fact he's all good with what's been provided. But it sounds like the number of things remaining for the applicant to undertake are narrowing down. The applicant has requested in email correspondence over the last couple of days that the town also amend a provision in Resolution 13 that required that the plat be recorded by November 19th. Thank you. And the idea there was we had included that provision in the resolution reinstating the final plat because this plat had sat out there for 5 years previously. without anything being done on it. And if we were gonna reinstate it, we wanted to know that it was going to get acted upon promptly. The applicants have spent substantial time and money on moving this project forward. They would like to have that date amended so that it simply follows the town code. And the town code provides that after the approval of the plat and the subdivision improvement agreement, that the applicants have 6 months in which to record the plat, and then they can request from you, the board, an additional 6-month period extension. I think in light of the momentum or the progress that's been made, that's a reasonable request. And I think we can do that simply by adding on a provision to the motion to approve that says that the plat recordation deadline for November 19th is superseded by the provisions of the town code governing final plats. So I'm happy to answer any questions specific to the subdivision improvement and development agreement. And again, Mark has some information about more on-the-ground planning items, in particular the applicant's compliance with the provisions in Resolution 13 related to the extension of Orchard Avenue and the development of parklands within both the development and land owned by the town.
Well, why don't I start with that, and then you can roll in all your questions together. And this is something, the memo, we had some miscoordination, and it did not get into your packet. That is in front of you right now, and there's an accompanying rendered landscape plan that in a minute Sheila will let me be the co-host. And in the meantime, here is the rendered plan, and by that is, it's a color diagram which helps you see things like fields, cars, streets, most importantly, landscaping. So Sheila, if you could, am I a co-host now?
You've been a co-host since you logged in, Mark.
Oh, okay. All right, so let me do this and that, and are we on? We are not. Oh, we are. Can you see it?
I don't see anything yet.
Thank you.
No.
No, we're not. Okay. Let me try that again. Share. Okay, now that's going to pop up. There we go. Okay. So, with the memo, which I just miscommunicated with Sheila on, there were 11 items, and almost all these are duplicates in some way or another, what you just heard Michael go through. So Michael did the lion's share of this, and with most of the documents for this particular review. If you look at my second page, go to number 4, because one of the primary topics of concerns at that meeting in May was that the town and the applicant reach agreement regarding the reconfigured use of the park parcel and recreation facilities. And if you remember, the 2-acre parcel which the town annexed at the end of last year, at the beginning of this year. So here is the rendered landscape plan, and this ball field, it is designed for U12 soccer, which was the goal. It's a smaller version, but it does fit on the area. And by the way, the 2-acre parcel boundary, if you can see my cursor right here, I'm going right down. So part of that, almost half of the soccer field and some of the landscaping is on the southwest portion of that area that was annexed. and which we hope would be for this purpose. So that was good, and that's one thing that staff was looking for, and it is in conformance. Another thing is that there are drainage facilities in here, and the town attorney says that that does work. Nathan had some tweaks to make to the drainage, but all that has been done, and it meets the town engineer's requirement. They still need to give an irrigation plan that's updated? You don't have an irrigation design yet, do you?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, what we looked at doing with that was to have an irrigation company provide that with the construction.
Okay, yeah. I mean, when I work on the private end, sometimes that's done the same way, where
Yeah.
we get someone come in, it's almost a design build.
Right, exactly.
There's still some kind of lump sum that's put in the.
It's in the estimate.
Okay, all right, okay. I had questions regarding the landscape plan, because the landscape plan that we showed you back in May was actually a prior one that was not necessarily with the 2017 plans, but was done about 2012 and 2013, when Jody Newton first came on board. And that actually included landscaping for the entire part of Phase 2, including street trees on, which is Orchard Avenue. The plan that was approved in 2017, which the Planning Commission recommended approval and the board approved, but I don't think any of you were on there. The lion's share of the landscaping was all around here where you see it right now in the park. And one reason was because of the specifications for street trees on local streets, which that's what Orchard Avenue is. The town's landscaping specifications don't ask for street trees necessarily, because sometimes with the widths of the right-of-way and the sidewalks, you have some problems. They did note that, hey, why don't you put some smaller fruit trees and all that. But my main concern at the beginning was, why is this landscape plan just for here? And then I found out why. The reason I just gave you. The other thing that I had a comment on was, I'm going right here, and this is the tot lot. Now, the tot lot was also mentioned in, I believe it's Ordinance 17, series of 2012, that there are more units coming into Phase 2, and besides everything else with the parks, there needs to be a tot lot. And the conceptual plan had more of a tot lot back in 2007, 2010. The tot lot here, it's smaller. It's about, when I measured it, I didn't measure the rendered one, but previously it was about 835 square feet, I believe. And it had a couple of big boulders and some pea gravel. And I didn't really get an explanation of why that was, that had been pulled back. And Nathan gave me one this evening, and I'd like him to tell you about that. But everything else that I saw from the application, it did meet all the requirements of that resolution back in May, which is Resolution 13. The biggest issue we had, can we come to an agreement on the landscape plan in the park? The ball field tends to be what we wanted. They are including all the costs, they're not asking the town to share any of that. Then I had a concern about landscaping. My questions have been answered about that. The only thing that I had that you may want to talk about with the applicant is the tot lot. Is that good enough for you? Nathan had a reason of why it became some boulders and pea gravel, and I'm used to seeing a little bit, more for a tot lot. 800 square feet, that's a good size 3-car garage, okay? Probably not much different than what we have in this room. So think about that for a tot lot. And with Nathan, since you had a comment about that, why don't you tell the board why that plan evolved to this?
Okay. Yeah, it was, so everybody knows, I've been involved with this since phase one, 2006, 2005, so through a lot of iterations through it. Back when phase one and two included all of this, including the parcel that the town now has, the town 2-acre piece. And so phase two at that point was configured differently, quite a bit differently. There wasn't a cul-de-sac at the upper end. This cul-de-sac was actually a loop road up to Orchard, Pickett loop through, so different configuration. And at that time, it also included the soccer field, because that was all part of the development. And the discussion then was this idea that, you know, it was 16th Street, the soccer field and the playground area and stuff at 16th Street was being improved at that point. And then Painted Pastures was also doing all of their major improvements over there with a significant kids playground, a lot of equipment and everything else in it, just down the street on Grand Avenue from this. And so really the intent was, as tight as it is in this, you know, this parcel right here, and as I said, there was actually development up in this northern half of this 2-acre lot. The discussion was, well, let's just have something small in there, you know, for kids during soccer games. The major, the most important part being the soccer field, an additional soccer field in there. And then the evolution, when that 2-acre piece didn't get transferred as part of the property in 2012, and there was a complete redesign on it back to what is now this configuration, and there was no room clearly for a soccer field down in that smaller area, because essentially the west half of it was gone in there. And so there was a little bit larger of a tot lot, because that entire area basically became a detention basin, with the intention, you know, by the town, basically, of whenever that 2-acre piece came in, this soccer field would be built and this, you know, tot lot area would be sort of reconfigured. And so, you know, flash forward to 2017, that was sort of the idea with it, and then 2021 and this redoing it where the town now had this parcel and discussions with it. It's like, okay, we're back to the soccer field configuration in it, and I'll just go up here so I can point a little bit.
Okay.
We're back to the soccer field configuration, but now Pickett Lane has the parking in the end of it and is a cul-de-sac, whereas before it actually went through and connected up in this way without any cul-de-sac, so there was this additional amount of area that was part of this whole soccer field and playground area. So then coming back, it was like, okay, we'll go back to just the small tot lot, which fits in this area. This is all sloped hillside, this lighter green, down to buffer zone, you know, a boundary, out of bounds area on the outside of it. So really no area to put any type of playground that's much larger than this, within this, without going, you know, potentially up into this area, which then we don't have access directly or parking for in it. So that's where sort of this evolution of this smaller tot lot, with the idea, okay, there's big playground equipment on either end of Grand Avenue down there, and this is primarily a soccer field, and then gives a little, you know, fill-in area and ability for the small kids during soccer games to exist there.
Okay.
So that's where it came in, and also, you know, the developer is, and owner is, bearing the brunt of, you know, all of the soccer field and the facilities in there, which is you know, a pretty significant add-on versus just a detention pond down in there. So it's that idea of trying to get the most bang for the buck on the soccer field, the tot lot being less important in this area for that.
Okay. Thanks, Nate. And I asked Nate to comment on that too, because when I went back and looked at old staff reports, Janet really didn't touch base very much on the landscaping plan, and I've found her past staff reports that I've reviewed. If she has a concern about something, you know, she goes into depth, and it wasn't mentioned, and, you know, was 5 years, well, 7 years ago or 5 years ago. And nobody had any knowledge of it, so thanks, Nathan. The last comment I have is that, back to the screen up there, here's the Orchard Avenue extension, and essentially that follows a template, and that 2 acre, that bit of the 2 acre which connects the end of the original Camarillo property here with the end over here at Kim Avenue, which is, which subdivision's that?
Flying Eagle.
Flying Eagle. Okay, so this is being done, and it's being done as part of the improvement, so Orchard Avenue is being extended at the same template, so it's not like it's being extra narrowed or it's just gonna be gravel. It's the same as you get with the rest of Orchard Avenue. So I really have no concerns. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to review the tot lot. And I'm done with my portion.
Okay. Questions or comments by the board?
I have a question about the space north of the soccer field and the trees.
That was my question.
Did I jump you in line?
No, go ahead.
That's town property, so it's not in Camarillo. That's
It
part
is,
of-
okay.
Yep, that's part of the
Yep.
2 acres that the town bought. And, the applicants have agreed to improve the western.
Really, we're taking
Southwest.
about the southern third of.
Yeah,
To
third
southern-
of the
about the southern
property.
third, and it's, if you look at it, it's about halfway up the cul-de-sac. That's where that boundary basically is.
And the town, as it sees fit, can figure out what to do with the remainder of its property consistent with, the board's articulation.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was my question, and, my only thought with that tot lot is, instead of the pea gravel, have them install, the same fall protection that the town's installing in all of our current parks.
I'd like to see that too. That sounds like something that our insurance company is requiring, so.
I'm sorry, I missed that comment.
So right now, we're doing fall protection, updating all the fall protection at all our other town parks with this foam.
Soft surface is what it's called, soft
Okay.
surface.
Yeah,
So instead of pea gravel, we'd like to just go ahead and get the same
okay.
fall protection put in.
Okay. And yeah, so I guess whatever goes in there at this point.
And I can get you all the information on that.
Okay.
Just so we're not digging pea gravel back out in a year and putting,
Yeah.
Keep the rocks under 6 feet.
I mean,
2.5.
Climbing rocks, what type of climbing rocks do we want in? Bouldering?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
a climbing,
bouldering?
a 60-foot climbing wall would be
There you go.
great
He
in there.
said, absolutely.
They can't be higher than
And-
6 feet?
And they don't have to be very big. I mean, there's a little
Is that the
triangle,
limit?
60 feet tall.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some boulders left around from the other construction that will be repurposed.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess for staff, my biggest concern is we keep going back to this point over and over and over and over again with this subdivision and wasting countless hours of staff time with this. So is there any way we can have any wording so that this project has to do something by a certain date?
You can, as a condition of your reinstatement of the plat, you set a date certain that the plat needed to be recorded, and remember, in order to record the plat, they have to post security, which is either gonna be a bond or a letter of credit, and people only undertake the expense of obtaining the security, cause that costs money. You pay that to a bank. When you're ready to turn dirt and construct. The applicant has indicated that they would like some additional flexibility from the November 19th date. You can have a dialogue with the applicant about that.
So if this, just trying to wrap my head around this, if the owner of this property is changed, because now it's an LLC that owns it, this resolution, our previous resolution is still tied to this
So
property,
It is. The resolution runs with the land.
with the land.
Yeah.
I think the owner's concern, is,
Well, let me talk to you about that a little bit. You mind? First off, understand that we own that free and clear. There are no debts on that ground. We have a lot of money invested in that piece of ground. And we're anxious to get it started. When we left here in May, we thought we were gonna have a plat in June. We had construction contracts ready to go. We thought we'd have construction done by Thanksgiving. Well, here we are at Thanksgiving. By the time we get through with this, the covenants and all that, we're gonna be Thanksgiving before we get this approved. And that's when you stop construction, not start it in this general region. Now, I know we've had years when you can do other things, but chances are good that it isn't worth our while to worry about the frost in the ground and doing this project, because we can't do pipelines in the wintertime. We could do some overlot grading, but we're not gonna gain more than a month by doing that in the wintertime. With the interest rates what they are today, if we start, we haven't made our determination whether we're gonna try to do a construction contract right now or as soon as we can get this done or not. Because, as you know, things are a little different than they were the first part of the year when we were fooling around with this. So we would like to have the opportunity here to, when you do a line of credit for $3.3 million, which is what we have to do here, that's the same as having cash to do it. You gotta have the cash to offset that $3.3 million. If it's possible for us we gotta go through the numbers again and check it out, but with interest today, if we could put that off until spring, because we don't gain much during the construction between now and then, it helps us out a lot. We don't mind letting you know, we have every intention of doing this in the fastest way it can be done. We really wanted to have it completed, the construction completed by Thanksgiving. We may have some credit for this thing being elongated, but till now, from May, but we're not the whole responsibility for that delay.
Okay, because we went through this in May, and then this property was listed for sale, right?
It was listed for sale only for the purposes of trying to talk, see what was going on. We don't have any intention, we own that free and clear. Our intentions are actually to probably sell off the single-family lots and build out all of this multifamily. And probably lease it. And the reason we want to do that, and we've set up a really significant organization to do that already, is because of the opportunity zone allows us to create some investment opportunities to raise money for that.
Okay.
So that's our intentions, and we have backgrounds among us to get that done in good shape. We've done much bigger projects than this over a long period of time. So for you to worry about, I understand what you've been through to date, but we're for real. We're not playing with this thing. We're doing it.
I guess I just have a concern because I've been part of this project since 2012 on this board.
Listen.
And it's everybody that's came before us is ready to, as soon as you approve this, we're turning dirt, and it.
Well,
like
we
I said,
would have, we would have done that. We were prepared to do it. But it's the end of the frickin' year, and we weren't prepared for that.
Okay,
And so the application of your subdivision code would give them 6 months from approval to record the plat, and that would be April. So
Yeah.
that would allow the winter time to
winter time
pass.
to
And
pass.
at the time that it's, appropriate for the developer to be able to say, we're ready to get the bond in place and to start turning dirt 2 weeks later, that, they can get that information to us.
okay.
And, to your point, Mr. Mayor, because again, you and I have been through this for, since 2012. Yeah, there's been a lot of people come and say that, that this is, this was gonna happen and then it never did. And I guess what I could say for these applicants is they have been very diligent in presenting information to the staff for review, and part of the timing to get to where we are today has been on staff's part, not necessarily on the applicant's part.
Okay. All right.
Let me ask one more question.
Yes.
If you recall, and nothing is documented here, but when we had the meeting in May, when it was preliminarily approved, there was also a discussion when we agreed to complete the soccer field in its totally, and also to make that road extension, that you would deed that piece north of the road to us to be included in this subdivision up there.
I was actually gonna ask what the plan was for that.
Yeah, and there's no record of that here that we would like to see documented, actually.
We had some conversations about that, and you'll remember over at the town center, we did have that conversation. But I don't recall there was ever a vote of the board or anything
Well, I don't
like
think there
that.
was, I don't
But
think there was a vote.
It was
I
just
think-
a discussion, yeah.
And I think we were advocating for that because I think most of us feel like it should be part of the residential community over there. There's not, I don't know what else you'd do with that piece of land.
That will require processing a subdivision, because the
Yeah,
2 acre parcel isn't subdivided.
Isn't
I mean,
subdivided.
and we would do that. We would do that.
so if you as a board, and again, this is independent of the resolution, but if you wanna give the town staff direction to work with the applicants on putting something together to that effect that we would then bring back to you, we can do that.
I would like to have that discussion with the whole.
Yeah, with the whole board.
Board.
Yes, I'd be in favor of
Agreed
it, but
at
yeah.
that point, yeah.
But to have the whole board. would be
But yeah,
better.
no, I know we did have that discussion because it is a small, maybe 2 lots.
Maybe only one, but maybe two.
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is your request to have the area north of the Orchard Avenue extension, but not south of the Orchard
That's
Avenue
correct.
extension? Okay,
As I
just wanna
recall, that's
clarify,
where
okay.
we kind of left things.
Yeah, because we also had discussions about lots possibly south of Orchard, but I think as a board, we
Yeah.
decided we wanted to keep
Yeah.
at least the
That's
southern
what,
half.
that's what I recall.
Yeah, we asked both sides, south and north, but, we got approved only north.
Yeah.
I know Sam and I were advocates of the south of Orchard Ave from the open space
Open space
perspective.
perspective,
I
yeah.
do
Yeah,
recall us
and I was in
advocating
favor
for
of it
that.
being residential.
Yeah. So
Obviously,
yeah, I'd like
that's-
to have that discussion
Agreed.
on that
Because they're gonna
at
build
a later
this.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
As far as the resolution, I think I'm fine with the resolution. One more time.
He has his little hash marks scratched in the wood.
Every
there.
time he comes through, I put mark on the desk. So the only additions we would have is the town attorney to update the resolution to update the current ownership. I wrote that one down. Do we need to do, instead of pea gravel, do we need to specify?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think specifying the material for the tot lot
For
is,
the tot lot fall protection?
Trey can help us. What is that material?
Soft surface.
Soft surface.
And then also the extension before that resolution 13 had a deadline of November 19, expunging the November 19 and putting in the town standard
6
The- the-
months.
section.
Well, the deadlines for recording the final plat will be governed by the town code.
Yeah, okay.
So would we actually be,
Want to think about that CDOT access permit also, or is that in there already?
That's in here
Okay,
already.
okay.
so would we actually be amending resolution number 13?
No.
Just make a.
I think you're just superseding it with the content of resolution 19.
Okay.
And then I will make those, assuming this passes, I'll make those changes, get that to Sheila, and she can, circulate that for signature.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
No, not specifically. I understand the applicant's point about the timeline, coming into the winter. So it would have been nice to have that done a lot sooner, but I understand the challenges there. So maybe to reiterate what you're saying, Mayor, just one more time, and let's see if we can get this project done.
Okay. This is a
Mr. Mayor, it is a public hearing,
public
so,
hearing. yeah.
okay, I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure.
Yep, this is a public
Make sure
hearing.
we didn't
so
fail on that.
If we have no
portion.
more discussion by the board, I'll move on. Okay.
Actually, it's called DuraSafe. Soft Surface is the company I went through that installed the product.
Sure, safe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
We got more?
Huh?
We got more?
Yeah. Okay, the time is now 9:01 PM, and I will open up the public hearing in regards to resolution number 19, series 2022. Persons desiring to make public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, I did not hear from anyone.
Okay,
I do not show any raised hands.
all right, thank you very much. And we have nobody in the public here with us tonight. So the time is now 9:02 PM, and I will conclude the public hearing for resolution number 19, series 2022, and open up to further discussion by the board, or a motion, or staff.
I have a point of order. There is one other change to the resolution, and that is we're going to delete condition number 9.
Oh, yeah,
No, the irrigation pipe, yeah.
I wrote it down, but forgot to ask her to. You have one, which is, I guess is gonna be a moot point, because we already have a agreement that this subdivision could potentially go forward underneath already, right? Is, what about our water system's capacity to handle this development? Do we have the capacity to add this development to our water system?
How many? Yeah, it was approved before.
Yeah. Phase 2 is 70 units, Trey.
Yes.
Yes, yes, or yes?
You're gonna make me do math in my head.
Well, it's because some of those are multifamily, so
Yes.
total units would be different than 74.
No,
No?
that's, that in the multi.
It is 74 units?
Yeah.
70 units.
Yeah, 70 units total.
Okay.
10, I think, are single family, and the rest are mixed.
Yeah, the rest of them are multifamily, but they're all 70 units.
Units,
Not
okay.
70 lots, 70 units.
70 units, okay.
Yes. Looking back at the memo that I gave you guys when we discussed the water, that still puts us under the peak daily demand that the plant can produce at the moment.
All right, because they will also be on raw water irrigation, correct?
Yes, they'll be on raw water irrigation.
Okay.
Because you included all of the potential developments with that, or just this one?
It's not.
No, we didn't, we just showed how many potential lots could be developed
Okay,
and
that's
what we was looking at as far as capacity on the plant.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll try it again, unless Kyle wants to. Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 19, series of 2022. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Silt, Colorado, approving the amended and restated subdivision improvements and development agreement for the Camarillo Plan Unit Development Subdivision Phase 2 in the Town of Silt, Colorado, with the, can I just say the aforementioned
How about I just read them?
changes?
With the following modifications.
There you go, with the following, there.
That the resolution in the subdivision improvement agreement will be updated to reflect the new ownership. That condition number 9 will be deleted. And that the town code will govern the timeline for recording the final plat, as opposed to the November 19 date contained in resolution number 13.
Perfect.
Point of order. And the fall protection at the tot lot will be DuraSafe soft surface
Yes.
Or approved equal.
or approved equal. Right? Yeah. I mean, if it's,
No, perfect.
all right. You want to
Second.
Second that one. All right.
I just wasn't sure he was done yet.
Yes. So we have a motion by trustee Clausen to approve resolution number 19, series 2022, with the additions, the 3 additions by the town attorney for updating current ownership, deleting number 9, and that the resolution will now replace resolution number 13 as far as the plat by date, and adding the fall protection for the tot lot to be DuraSafe soft surface or an approved alternative. That motion was seconded by trustee Hanrahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much, Jim.
Yep.
Thank you, thanks a lot,
Guys.
guys. And I can assure
You
you,
can want that, Nate, you can have it.
we're not looking to delay anything.
You don't let me come out there with a shovel and start moving dirt?
Have that.
If you'll give us till spring,
I just want to see
we're
dirt
on
moving.
it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
You've been there. I've been doing
Thanks,
this a long
Nathan.
time.
Have a good evening.
How many times has he been through that cycle along with you?
Twice a month.
It's done. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the request of a board member to represent the town of Silt on the Middle Colorado Watershed Council Board, and I will turn this over to Administrator Lehman.
You'll recall that when Paula Stepp, the executive director of the Middle Colorado Watershed Council, was here a month or so ago, she asked if any of you would like to participate in the board, and we just wanted to see if anyone wanted to jump on that board or accept her invitation. The guideline for board responsibilities was attached to the packet. And we wanted to just extend that opportunity if anybody wanted to do that.
I mean, I volunteer at the Silt Historical Park and I'm on the Silt Heyday Committee, so I don't think I'd have to be honest, I don't think I'd have the time that it would require of this position.
And I just volunteered myself for the governance council, so I'm definitely, I filled my quota for the evening, gentlemen.
How about Sam? He's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's not here that we can nominate in absentia?
Well, Sam likes river stuff.
He is a water expert,
Water
I mean,
expert.
all things considered.
Yeah, can we extend this to the next meeting and see if Sam would like to
We'll see you, Mark.
See you, Mike.
We give him the opportunity to decline.
decline that position?
Mark, whatever your name is.
I know he's got some scheduling
getting
constraints
kinda
though,
hard.
so.
That's where I'm at. Until
yeah.
after the first of the year, I don't know what I have going on.
You know what, maybe we'll reach out to Sam
Okay.
offline and
I know
suggest to him that his peers thought that might be a good idea for him.
I know Justin is already, I think he's on the Vail board, and I think does he also do the Haydays Committee?
Yes.
He is, and then he's also on the Parks, Recreation, Culture,
For master plan.
Master Plan.
His cup runneth over.
And the weed board.
And he's on the county weed board.
They need to rename that.
That's,
I know, yeah, it's kind of.
that's poorly done. That's
It might
doomed.
have a different name than that, but that's how most people know it.
No,
Noxious weed board.
noxious weed board.
Yeah.
Doesn't help.
Might
Tomato,
still need a
tomato.
change.
Yeah, let's reach out to the board members that aren't here and see if any of them can do it, and then we can make a plan at that point in time.
Mayor Pro Tem is conspicuously silent right now.
I'm in the same boat as everybody else currently. The time commitment. Let's see if Sam can do it. If not, maybe we can have a further discussion when everybody's there.
Okay. There's some direction for staff.
Got it.
Okay. Next up is administrator and staff reports.
An update on Panoramic, they currently have withdrawn their application to tie onto the town water system. When the numbers they ran were 3 years old. When they reran the numbers, it's a little out of their budget, and also in their talks with CDP, HE.
Yep.
And the state revolving fund and such, only being a small HOA of 19 people, they're not gonna carry a lot of weight in getting some state funding. So they are currently looking at other options, and also in 30 days, I think in August, they hauled 54,000 gallons of water out of our bulk water stations up there for their tanks.
Is that a lot?
Somebody asked that. I think it averaged out to like 1,200 gallons a day between 19 homes, which is not a lot, but
No.
it's significant.
Well, it underscores that they've got to solve it somehow, right? If it's not town supply, they,
Yeah, so as we find out more, I'll let you know, but currently they have withdrawn the application.
And we did some follow-up with the Division of Water Resources, and while it's not a final determination, they suggested that to serve that property, we might actually have to amend our plan for augmentation, which would take time and cost money, and it would be an additional consideration for the board. And my recommendation to Trey was, well, if Panoramic comes back and they're like, they feel like they can finance the improvements and they want to move forward, we'll press the division about what exactly the town has to do with respect to its water rights. But if they're not interested in moving forward, at least for now, we don't see the reason to spend town resources on that.
Sounds good. Did we hear from the asphalt company whether they'll extend their warranty?
He was out
period?
on vacation. I heard from him today. We was discussing something else, but I have not heard on that.
Okay.
I will get you an answer and have Jeff get it to everybody.
Okay. Any questions? Or Jeff, you got anything you'd like to?
Just a couple of quick things that I would add to my report. If anybody had any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to talk about it. But we've been approached by a citizen who wants to resurrect the siren, blowing the siren at noon every day. I talked to 3 people at Misty's last week, and they all agreed that from a nostalgia point of view, having that siren blowing every day would really make them feel like the old days. I told them I would bring it up. I wasn't sure how, I didn't even know if it still worked. But I said I'd at least bring it up and see if the board wanted to consider that at some point in the future.
So where is the siren?
On top of Town Hall.
Yeah.
The siren sets above the ambulance bays on the roof.
And in all the towns, other antennas are attached to it.
Yeah, we have
Well,
other antennas attached to it as well. And
What was the point of blowing it every day at noon back in the day?
They were testing it because they used it, I think, for emergency services to call.
before there was pagers and things of that nature, that would go off to signify for the volunteers. We need an ambulance, we need the fire department. Because in the hometown I grew up in, that's before pagers. When that went off, we knew to go to the firehouse as a fireman because somebody called in a fire.
Yeah. Well, and at one time, it was used to tell the town residents we were out of water. I mean, back in the 70s, yeah, you know, when the water plant was, you know, basically non-existent and you had very limited water, yeah, they would ring that siren to tell you, hey, you know, don't take a bath tonight.
I mean, Aspen sets theirs off every day at noon. The firehouse rings their siren.
That's real.
That don't make it right. I get, yeah, with all due deference to nostalgia, this sounds, no pun intended, like a fairly disruptive thing to do in the middle of the day. And I think about the library being right down the street from it and the impacts there and possibly on Main Street. We used to start fires with sticks, but we don't do it now. I mean,
I think it would be awesome to have that thing come back and go off at noon every day. I like nostalgia. Small town. You know, part of what we've talked about in the past with a lot of the different projects that we've done is just like the overall culture of our town. You know, that could just be a small little piece of culture, you know, in Silt. You know, make a lot of the people that have lived here for a really long time feel a little bit of like the old culture. And, you know, I don't know, I think that's kind of a unique idea and I'd be in favor of it. I can't imagine it goes off that long that it's like, you know, gonna be a big deal.
Yeah.
I also work from home. So from a personal perspective, I don't need that siren going off.
tell you, it's
one
lunch
of those
break.
old school air raid
Yeah.
sirens. Yeah, it's loud.
It is kind of loud, and I think from winding up to winding down, 45 seconds to 60 seconds maybe.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, the
Maybe
switch is in
do
the
it once a
hallway.
week.
Once
Yeah,
a
I think
year.
I've seen some towns that just did it on Mondays at noon.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
expense would be to get get it re-hooked up and get a timer system hooked up to it. We haven't looked into it at all, so. But I think in the old days, they actually had somebody standing there.
We
Hopefully.
used to use it when I first started here, and somebody had to physically go up and flip the switch and turn it off. And if we didn't, then we got a phone call from someone down the street reminding us to do it.
Turn the thing off.
Can we have a daily lottery where whoever
yeah,
loses
turn
has
it
to
on.
go up and ring it?
No, those switches inside town hall.
Are they?
Because it was still active when I first started. I came in
Yeah.
one of these doors and thought I hit the light switch, and I hit the switch to the siren and set it off.
I did the same thing. What's this switch? Sorry. Oh, whoops.
I agree with Kyle. I think it kind of goes back to how I feel about fireworks on 4th of July.
I mean,
The more you push off old time tradition, it goes away. And it's not something that, once it's gone, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
But daily? Is there a middle ground, like once a month?
Saturdays.
Yeah.
Town I grew up in, the siren went off Saturdays at noon.
Saturday at noon, Monday at
It
noon.
was to tell you it was time to go have some fun.
I mean, yeah. I'd like to see what it's going to take to get it going. I'm assuming an old air raid siren is probably pretty resilient, and I bet it's probably turning it on, and it will make noise.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
Oh,
just chasing down some wires or a fuse or something of that nature.
Yeah, because the switch isn't in the town hall anymore. At least I don't see it from my desk. It used to just be right up here by the front window.
Yeah, there
So I
used
don't
to be
know
one
how
there
that
and one back
redid
here.
that. counter.
There's actually two. There was one back here by this door and one by the door that
Oh,
you used to
really?
be able to come into the ambulance bay.
Oh, okay.
How about we put this discussion on a future
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed
agenda?
to it.
We'll bring some numbers back for you, and we'll have the,
We'll see if it's
You know.
we'll
operational.
see if the proponent would come in
Yeah.
and
Well,
talk about it.
the original thought that this individual had was move it to the historical park, and I'm like, I'm sure we would violate a whole lot of codes if we did it ourselves, so that's why I was like, but here might be different.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
What's a great idea?
Giving it to the historical park to,
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what-
In Newcastle.
That's more consistent with your, what you were saying earlier, Sheila. The only other thing I had is I want you to mark your calendars for the evening of December 16th. We're gonna have our town Christmas party at the Rifle Fireside Lanes. And we wanted to invite all the electeds and appointeds this year, so if you put that on your calendar, we'll see if Santa Claus will come and bring everybody a little cup of joy or something for the Christmas spirit. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Any updates from the board or board comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing here.
Trustee Clausen?
The only thing I have is I just wanted to remind people that, you know, please don't throw your cigarette butts out the window, because this weekend a neighbor of mine did that right in front of my house and it was still lit. You know, so I walked up there and the thing was lit and he cussed me out. But, you know, the point is, you know, I mean, look at the Glenwood Canyon fire. You know, either a chain or a cigarette butt. And look at all the havoc it created with the mudslides and people not being able to get to work, and even our own water plant, you know, having issues filtering it. So please don't be irresponsible and throw your cigarette butts out the window. Please, you know, dispose of them properly.
All right.
And the trail going up from the pavilion looks really good.
Okay. Trustee Henry?
Just a reminder to our citizens, we've got a whole bunch of Halloween activities going on. I don't remember the details of them off the top of my head, but check the sign at the roundabout, and the website also has some of those details, doesn't it?
Yes.
So just a reminder to go and check that out. Also great to see Trustee Seifert here for a little bit earlier this evening. Great to see him getting back to health. Also wishing good health for Trustee Britnall, who couldn't join us tonight. And Kyle, just a bit of irony, you've been wanting people to come in here, and there was a ton of people in here tonight, and you weren't able to join us.
I knew somebody was going to mention that, and I'm still an advocate for not having Zoom.
But we miss you, man. We look forward to getting you back in here.
Thank you guys.
Feel
Sorry
better.
I'm not there. It's not feeling good today.
We wouldn't have had a quorum without.
That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And I've got nothing. Next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Motion to adjourn by Trustee Clausen, seconded by Trustee Hanrahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right.
Bye, everybody.